So I just want to show you all how I prep my list for the morning. This was one of the hardest things that I learned in intern year. It's a lot different than when I was a student. I only carried 2 to 3 patients. Then I ended up carrying 10 as an intern. So really these were things that I picked up along the way. And when I was asking residents while I was a med student, no one was really able to explain to me very clearly how to run the list, just kind of vague, general things. Even when I was on my own boot camp for school, no one really explained to me how to set up my list. More just vague, like you'll figure it out, or you'll learn it along the way. But it took a little bit of time to get used to it, so I wanted to show you exactly how, an example of how the kind of system that I use more in detail, just so that you can use it as a starting off point. And then as you progress, you can sort of develop your own system and go from there. So first you'll print out your list and print it through Epic. You can check off which columns you want. But basically I would start off with bed. So make sure you start off with bed because you will round based on bed. That's the easiest way because then you don't have to go to one side of the hospital, then the other, and then back and forth. So I advise definitely rounding by bed, not by last name. Then you'll have the patient name and have whatever other columns of info. I like to put age and gender so that you can present off your rounding list. And then depending on how your institution works, but we use like the handoff, it's called the handoff patient summary. But it's just a general info and blurb about what brought each patient in. Basically their assessment is basically what that is. And it's useful to kind of get a quick summary of what the patient's here for. So I usually have that in there. Then I also have a special column that's unique to me called My Sticky Note. And a lot of Epic has that. It's on the left upper corner. It looks like a sticky note. Basically, I write my own short notes in that. You can write whatever you want in that. Sometimes in the beginning, I used to write off exactly what my own quick assessment was. And I tend to do this at the very beginning of the rotation just because I'm getting used to each of the new patients, and this handout blurb is actually ginormous. So I created my own like bare bones, quick like one line what they're here for, and then I would do within each note like hashtag like hyponatremia, like hashtag like altered mental status, or like whatever the key issues that they're still keeping in the hospital, and quickly what we were doing under each one. So it was more like I would mainly use a sticky note at the beginning of each rotation, just quick notes for myself for each patient. What is it I'm most worried about? So this sticky note, I still keep it in there sometimes, but it's more essential when I'm just starting on a new service and I don't know the patients that well. And then next I have a column for medications. And I really like this column just because sometimes someone will ask me, so what medications are they on? Or like, what the dosage of this that they're on? And this one has a nice list of all of them and what the dosage is for each of those. Now, if they're on a lot of medication, sometimes they don't show up because the list is so long, but most of the time this is really helpful. And then you want to check in the printer when you go to print off your list, they'll give you an option to do a blank column. I recommend putting the blank column on so that you can have your running checklist. So sorry, my handwriting's not that great, but basically you'll have a grid of all your important things here. And you'll have it like each patient, their own little section. So in the morning, you'll have, I'll write here under this corner bed because there's actually a lot of space. I'll write kind of the major overnight things. I'll write as a bullet list all the major important things to report on rounding to the senior resident and then the attending. So I'll add stuff to this depending on what discussed with the senior resident. But it'll be like, gave Lasix or CT head unremarkable or something like that, in whatever shorthand that you want to do. And at the bottom of this line here, of this row that delineates this patient from this patient, I'll write out the vitals or whatever they are, whatever. And I'll make sure to take note of if, not just the last vitals, but if they had any fever. So if they were febrile, I'll write 38 at whatever time, at midnight or something. And if pressures are important, then I'll just write the range. Like, let's say they're running 150s to 180s or something like that. And then you always, of note, make sure you know like how many liters of oxygen they're on. So that's one setup. And then I also have my nice fishbone stamp. So I stamp everything really quick. So this is why I have this, so I can just go like this on all of the columns like that. So in the morning that I just quickly, actually I will say this, that I set up this the day before. So the first day is going to be a hot mess, and that's understandable. But the next day, the day of, I print out the list for the next day. And I set this up exactly like this, stamp each column, and then fill in these fish bones with the latest lab. So at our institution, we don't get morning labs before morning rounds. So the most recent labs are the current or the yesterday's labs. So that's why I fill these in at the end of my day, or whenever I have time on the day, with the labs that resulted from the morning, so that the next day I can report generally the trends for that day. So I fill these in with whatever labs are in there. And then if something's abnormal, like this is the only time I really use the color pen. To me, it's kind of a waste of time to do the color thing and to color code everything. So I basically use like black or blue, whichever preference. And then if something's weird, then I'll circle it. Like let's say this was 3.2 or something. I'll circle it to note it to discuss on rounds. And if it's abnormal, this is the only time where I'll like right below, like with an arrow, like it went from, let's say it was 5 or something to 3.2. I'll write this, but I don't really spend time writing any other like what this was before. But I do keep on my yesterday sheet in case I need to refer back to it really quickly. But this is the only time I note like other labs. So that's it for this fishbone section. But important that I fill this out the day before. Also, the other thing I do day before is fill in this list at the end of the day. I'll get back to that in a little bit towards the end, how we do that. But basically that's kind of it for this patient. Sometimes I'll write like more other labs on the side here, like hepatic labs or something like that, or anything abnormal that I'm looking for. And then over here on the blank column, even before the day starts, even before the pre-round, I kind of already take notes of important things. This is where that sticky note could come in handy. Like if I know I need to watch their creatinine or something, I'll have noted it there. Like for example, because we're giving them Lasix, then here I'll be like creatinine or something to make sure that I watch out for the creatinine, maybe look at ins and outs for that day or something. So I'm already like trying to think ahead of things that I need to do. And if not, I will continue to add based on what the senior residents said. I will add to this list, and then the final list will be like attending things and what they want or what they advise, and I'll add that on to this list. So by the end of rounding, this is nicely filled out. So we'll continue. This is all filled in with each patient. now this is all like set up for the pre-rounding set part of things. So you're going to pre-round on your patients as you see each patient, and it's going to be efficient because you're going to see them by room location, and you're going to see the ones that are close together. Once you see them, I check off that I saw them, and then I'll keep going and keep going so I make sure I don't miss anyone. In the early days, I have missed patients and had to run around and try to like do this at the last minute, and it was not an efficient use of time. So in order to make sure you've seen each and every patient, check mark off who you've seen. So in terms of the next step would be, again, this is kind of reiterating things, but we're rounding again now with our senior resident. You already have here the list of important things, overnight events, but also not just overnight events, but also events that happened the prior day. So like we were saying, for this guy, we gave him Lasix, got a CT head, maybe overnight they had the fever. They had a fever of 38 degrees, got blood cultures. And you'll develop your own shorthand, but I use this as my shorthand for blood culture. This is just guessing. You'll probably like follow up blood cultures or something like that. Like I said, anticipating what you might need to do will be helpful. But this will come with time. In the beginning, you'll just kind of know like whatever your senior resident says, and then you'll start developing instincts of what needs to be done for the next day. So you'll review the list, report the vitals, and in the beginning, you'll probably be more detailed about it, but as the time goes on, you'll just kind of note more important things, just critical things on the exam, like, oh, they had crackles on their exam, for example, and you don't really need to say anything else about that. Just note only like abnormal findings. And then quickly go into the plan, like as we listed here. And then you'll do that for every patient. I forgot. Also report any of abnormal labs. And then add to your list depending on what folks say. Now, as the day goes on, you'll probably do social work rounds. And so that can depend on your institution. Sometimes you're on one floor and they're all on the same floor. Other times they're going to be in different nursing units and you have to go to each nursing station and do the social work rounds in like 5 different places. So for this, you already have your check mark on the side, and sometimes you have to go to wherever is free. So anytime I finish social work rounds, I actually cross this out. I'd be like, we reviewed this guy and we reviewed this guy, but then these two are in another section, so I go over there, and then now I know I haven't missed anyone. I have also missed people in social work rounds as well, and it's also been terrible because there's lots of people waiting to report and do social work rounds, so then you have to wait in line again. So it's important to also keep track of these things as well. All right. And then towards the end of the day, to save you time, what I will also do, like I was explaining before, is I print out another list towards the end of the day, and it'll be the exact same thing. Similar things, similar columns, like we were talking about: bed, name, handoff, etc. Now at this point, at the end of the day, you've already crossed out, you've already followed the creatinine, you've already done that, and you've already done whatever list of tasks. At the end of the day, and I've done this differently, sometimes I don't check these off, sometimes I just write it on this other sheet. If I had time to print this out in the morning. If I don't, then I'll just write it on here when I'm doing rounds in the afternoon with the resident. So usually you'll do what's called running the list with your senior resident, and so you'll go over the tasks to make sure that you're not missing anything and what tasks were done and what else needs to be done. And usually that happens in the afternoon. So when we're running the list, I have this list already printed out, and I will note the things that we have already done. I'll list out, when I'm running the list with the senior resident, we did the CT, we watched the ins and outs, blood cultures are negative, so that tomorrow when I'm running the list with the senior resident in the morning, this is just, I don't have to add anything. All I have to do is add any overnight events, basically. And so maybe for this person, there's no overnight events. But if there were, I just add it on, and that's less work for me to do in the morning. And like I was saying before, I just go ahead and fishbone stamp this whole list that I have already. And so as the day goes on, I will fill it in as the results are coming in. And then you can also think about repleting as well along the way. So I just fill this in as the day goes on, particularly towards like early afternoon, late afternoon. And at any time during the day, I will also copy my note that I've already made, my progress note, and prep it for the next day. So this is easiest done in the morning when you finish off your note. Like instantly hit copy and have that in the incomplete section. And you can start to fill it in, like I said, towards after you've kind of rounded with your resident, you can put these things into your progress note as you're going along. And you have that ready to go for the next day. So all you have to do is add if any overnight event happens, and then make sure the rest of the the assessment plan section is a little updated, and then hit sign. So it's less work for you to do. So I also will note that I prepped that progress note. So what I'll do for myself is write a little circle. So for me, it's just a circle. It's just this. And let's say these are other things. This is just to fill in stuff. But basically, I'll do a circle. Like I prepped this note, I copied this note and prepped it with all the info, circle. I made a progress note for the next day, circle. This one was done, circle. So then as the day goes on, I'll note that I have prepped the note for the next day. And then if there's any leftover tasks that need to be done that, didn't get done, like for example, this is negative, but we still need to follow it for a couple of days, I will put in here blood culture. That means for me to follow it up. So I'll put on task for the next day as well, prepping this list for tomorrow. Alrighty, so then we start the cycle all over again. So I'm just going to show this real quick how this would look for me. So presumably this is all filled in with stuff. Just imagine this is all filled in with nonsense. Alrighty, so in the morning I'll fill in all the vitals with stuff. These are all vitals. My preliminary tasks are filled in with what I think needs to be done. This is all examples. And this other section of important overnight events is in. Let's say that person had a fever, this guy got morphine. And then next we move on to pre-rounding. I pre-rounded on this person, this person, this person, this person. Reviewed with the senior resident all these important overnight events for each patient, their vitals, their labs, any abnormal exams. Oh yeah, and of note, any time their person has an abnormal exam, I kind of just note it in this general area, like crackles or something, so I don't forget it, because you will forget it after seeing multiple patients. So I note it. If there's anything funky going on, as soon as I see the patient, I'll note it down the list, like crackles or ab distended or something like that. Anything that was weird, that was different than the other day, I'll add it on there. So you've reviewed with your resident the important things that happened yesterday and overnight, the vitals, any abnormal exam findings, labs, your tentative plan for the day, Maybe they tell you to get an x-ray, for example, this, then you'll add that. Like I said, colors I do sparingly. I've seen some people do like funky colors for this and that, but I think it's a waste of time. I think the only thing you can use this for is, like I said, circle like important labs. Maybe for this one, your attending wanted you to get something more critical, that's more time sensitive. Or like I said, other time sensitive stuff, like this person needs to be NPO or something. Or so I'll write like NPO midnight or something, because this is important. They'll need to go for procedure. Sometimes I'll circle things in red that are critical for the day. So that's the only real color you need. You just need 2 colors, I think, at most. Otherwise, I think things start to get confusing. So, okay, so you've rounded already, and now you're on to social work rounds. I social work rounded on these guys, social work rounding done. Now I have time to finish up my notes. So I finish up notes on this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. So that's how I delineate that I finished a note. I like cross out the circle, because the circle meant I have a note in the incomplete section that I've already prepped. And then once I sign it, I cross it off. Now, important thing, if you prep notes from the night before, you want to make sure the time is adjusted so that it files for the current day. So I've definitely accidentally filed for the prior day, even though it was meant for the current day. So don't forget to do that. Then as the day goes on, you just complete your checklist, and the cycle continues where you print out a new list and do the same thing all over again. Prepping it, creating the circle, noting that you prepped your notes for the next day, and the cycle continues. So I hope that's helpful. This might have been a lot, but I think the critical thing is just learning efficiency and creating a system that you understand. For example, I used to have a custom stamp where it stamped like a list of things like rounding, orders, consults in the order that they should be done. And that was helpful at the very beginning, but again, it was kind of, I don't know, it to me wasted time. So I stopped using that system. But it might be a helpful crutch to have like maybe a little like card about what important things need to be prioritized, which are mainly consults and orders, and then kind of the rest of the other stuff. But that comes with time. Anyway, I hope this kind of system makes sense and that you can use it as a springboard for your own kind of style that you like to do for making your list and making it easier on yourself. This is just one way that I found to be efficient for me. And I think kind of these like quick symbols and check marks are the easiest, fastest way, as opposed to like changing colors like a lot for each section. I think I used to do like vitals in one color and like this in another color, but it honestly was too much work. I hope this makes sense and that you can see this. So you can see what that looks like. This was the other page, just real quick. Well, basically this hopefully is helpful and that you can take this with you and kind of expand upon it. All right. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps.